Hey everybody, Mark Agnesi here for Gibson TV. Today, I'm in downtown Nashville, Tennessee, on my way to see my friend guitarist Joe Bonamassa. Now, Joe's the preeminent blues guitarist of his generation, but he's also become notorious for being one of the biggest vintage guitar collectors in the world. And with 22 consecutive #1 albums to his name and non-stop touring around the globe, his collection has done nothing but grow. What you're about to see may shock you. This is the collection, Joe Bonamassa's Nerdville East.
Welcome to Nerdville East, Mark. How you doing?
Good, man. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You're the first with cameras in here. Check it out.
Oh, well, thank you for having us, man.
There's a lot to see.
Dude, it never stops being overwhelming just right from the front door, man.
How many people do you know that have a 1950s Aero that's also heating the apartment in the middle of summer, and a Rickenbacker Transonic in their lobby? This is before you even get past Go and collect 200.
Man, there's just so much to see here.
Let's go check out the rest of the place. It's quite vast.
All right, so we're here in the living room of Nerdville East. I've always known you as a California guy. When did you decide to become bi-coastal here?
You know, I was working in Nashville actively for like the last, I would say, 10 years.
Yeah.
Writing, recording, and I found myself traveling here in the off times, you know, and spending a lot of time here during the times that I was off tour. And finally you just go, okay, you go from living on the road, living in hotels, to traveling here for work, living in hotels, and you're like, well, it just seemed like a natural progression to come here and set up shop. And it's been great. I've been here for 3 years, and I really love the city, the camaraderie. There's some very talented people that live in Nashville. It's a very welcoming city. It's a very great place to work. And I found this place. I bought it from a friend of mine, and I wanted to live in a building and, you know, and just kind of just be able to walk and you know, chill out if I wanted to. So it was a perfect fit when I found it.
You had already kind of had the Nerdville thing happening in California. When you saw this place, did you just start having visions of where all the stuff was going to go?
I'd been here a couple of times for a 4th of July party. And in this location, you can see the Nashville fireworks is one of the best displays in the country. I always said, you know, I want to buy a place like that. You know, my friends in downtown, and just so happens like a week later, he called me and said, hey, I'm thinking about selling the condo. Do you know anybody that's interested? And I go, me? You know, the stuff inside of it, you know, in this place has progressed as I would come off the road, and a lot of times the gear gets dumped here. And I kind of see things, I go, that'll fit there, and then, you know, as one who is addicted to this stuff, you know, as it goes, it escalates. So this place looked a lot different 3 years ago. You know, conversely, I look at photos and that video that Reverb did of the place in California, and it to me looks empty compared to what it is now. And you know, and they, you know, most of the comments from the video were like, man, you're crazy. I'm like, you should see it now if you think I'm crazy. Then the house feels smaller, you know? I mean, like, believe it or not, this place is 2,350 square feet. Feels like it's like feels claustrophobic, but, you know, when you start jamming 20, 30 amps and 100 guitars into an apartment, it gets a little crowded. I know where every guitar, every amp is. I know where I bought it. I know what I paid for it. I know if it's in storage. I know if it's out. For the visitor, it's like, it takes you 2 days to figure out what's here. Me, I can just tell you whatever you're looking for. I go, oh yeah, it's just around the bend. No. Take 10 steps, look up. You know what I mean? It's like, that's why, you know, the nature of a collector, you're intimately involved in it. Here's where it all started for the Les Paul, 1952. Pretty cool, pretty honest, original owner. Frosted knobs, just fine. Still got flat wound strings from about 40 years ago on it. I like it like that. And I played it on Joanna Connor's record, and it plays great with flats.
That's what it was
That's
supposed
what
to
it's
be on
supposed to
there.
have, yeah.
Now, you have the place in LA, you have the place here, you also have a place in New York now. What guitars live where, and do you have specific reasons why certain guitars live in certain places?
I do. I do. Los Angeles has been a base of operations for me for 20 years. And the museum aspect of my collection is there. The cleanest, the rarest of the rare, the Blackburst is there, the V's are there, all the custom colors, the brown CMI guitar that I bought years ago. I mean, Strats, Tellys, 335s, see-through finishes. I have to pinch myself sometimes. The stuff that I keep here are tools, and because we rehearse here, we make our records here a lot of times. So I keep the toolkit here. I keep the Tellys that I play. I keep the Les Pauls that I play. Everything that's on the road rotation generally stays here. There is a method to the madness. And, you know, the amps that I keep here are the working amps. The ones in California tend to be very well preserved, but very poorly maintained. Like, they're like, how does that amp sound? I go, I don't even know if it was sound. I don't even know if that thing works anymore. It's
really
sitting
clean,
here
though.
It's been really, look how mint it is, you know? The way I look at it is I'm a custodian for the time that I'm on this planet for stuff that I really love and want to preserve and use and cherish and be surrounded by it. It's a personal choice. It's no other than if you collected, like we were talking earlier, Coca-Cola memorabilia, or for, you know, and you know. But the cool thing about this kind of stuff is it's tangible, and I use it for my job.
Is it?
All right, Mike. This is the vault. Should have a retinal scan, fingerprint identification,
Dual key cards at the
dual
same
key
time.
cards, you know, everything that you need to just access the home screen of your iPhone. But it doesn't.
Oh wow, it's a lot of brown cases.
Yeah, it's just it's a good old-fashioned pile of guitars.
It's a good old guitar pile.
It's a guitar pile.
Love a guitar pile.
And, you know, like, I'm really fastidious, good word, about my walls being no nicks, because I'm just, as I get older, I'm just more OCD about it. But in the guitar pile,
Scuffs are allowed.
scuffs are allowed. You cannot get worried about scuffs. We're gonna pull out a bunch of stuff for you today.
Oh man. Well, we might as well start with the first brown case here.
Let's start with the headliner. Be careful with Italian restaurants you go to in Sherman Oaks, California, because trouble can be brewing.
Yeah.
This showed up at a place called Baroni's Italian Restaurant in Sherman Oaks during a Christmas party for a bunch of like-minded guitar geeks. It was painted red, had no parts on it, because the box of parts my friend David had left at his guitar shop. He's a luthier, David Neely. And he'd taken all the parts off of it, including the original pickups and hardware and pots and harness, everything, tuners, and left it behind. It was just a husk when I saw it. And it was painted red. And what it turned out to be, probably one of my best discoveries ever.
Look at that top.
This is Lazarus, risen from the dead. It was purchased in 1963 by the guy I got it from, and for $100. And in 1967, he said, I don't like all these
All that
lines.
flame on there, it's distracting.
It looks like my end table. So he painted it candy apple red. One of the things is, to identify these kind of guitars, is a lot of your information is underneath this pickup, which is the original pickup. This, underneath here, there's a neck tenon. And luckily, what he didn't paint over was the neck tenons and the pickup route here, and he did not paint inside of here. Good idea if you're going to refinish a 59 Les Paul. Please do not refinish a 59 Les Paul.
Don't do that.
Yes, please don't. But he lucked out because you can identify what it is by here, here, you can a little bit in here, generally here and here, center seam. I said, I know exactly what this is. There was some disagreement at the table, and again, there was some merriment and lots of Ubers by the end, and some speculated it was conversion, some said it was a 68. I go, no. Look at the Holly veneer, which is original to the guitar. The box of parts comes out. I see 2 wonderful M69 rings. I see 2 PAFs untouched. I go, like it. See the knobs, I see the harness, and then I go, do you have the pots? Luckily, the entire harness was intact, and it read the 7th week of 1959. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, what is it? So I took a chance. I made the guy an offer. He wanted the guitar restored, and he brought in this Gibson ad to David, and he pointed to this photo of the Sunburst Les Paul and said it used to look like this, and can you restore it? And my budget is $1,500. So instead of, maybe he doesn't want to sell it, and whatever, I said, but I gave him the offer, and he goes, okay, I'll call him. And it must have been enticing enough, because by the time I'd walk down the stairs at Neely Guitars, across the street to Guitar Center, because I needed to go get some Ernie Ball guitar strings, because I didn't have any at the house. In the middle of the intersection on Sunset and Gardner, I get a call from David, who I just saw 30
You're
seconds
like 500 yards away.
Less.
Yeah.
Right. You could have shouted out the window at me. Come back. He goes, come back. He goes, he'll take your offer. I sent it to Kim LaFleur the next day after getting a check. And Kim started to kind of look at it, and he started to sand off a little bit right here underneath the red, and he went right for Kim knows what he's looking at. He knows what he's doing. Best in the biz, in my opinion. And he goes for want to find out if there's a center seam. So you see this seam, you go, oh, nice, great. My hypothesis was correct. Then all of a sudden, all this wood shows up, and you're like, whoa.
Wow.
And so it's a refinished 59 Les Paul named Lazarus, and it sounds wonderful. This thing had been under red paint for over 50 years. And now it's a Sunburst Les Paul again, and getting a second lease on life. And it feels a lot like guitars in the Carmelita range, Nicky range, Snakebite range, and it's kind of got a skinnier profile 59 neck, which I like. But it's a wonderful story, it's a wonderful guitar, and it's the original case. It just goes to prove the stuff is still out there.
No.
It's not all spoken for, it's still out there. So there's Guitar One. Lazarus.
People associate you with the Sunburst Les Paul.
Yes.
Do you remember the first time you actually got your hands on one? As I'm assuming probably as a kid you got the chance to play one. Do you remember the first burst you got to play?
First burst I got to play, Fall Philly, 1993. My dad was in the guitar business at the time, and there was a guy walking around a 58 Sunburst, and had recognized me from a band that I was in called Bloodline, and said, hey kid, you should try this out, So it was like a 58 Les Paul. I couldn't really understand what I was playing. I knew it was a very valuable guitar. At the time, I believe the asking price was $16,000, which was incredibly
crazy.
expensive.
You're out of your mind.
Incredibly expensive. Next one I got to play, probably a year later, was one that walked into the House of Guitars. Guy wanted a car. And they were like, what kind of car do you want? He goes, I want a Lincoln Town Car. So they went out and bought him a Lincoln Town Car and traded it for the guitar. Try doing that accounting at the end of the year. What's this business expense? Lincoln Town Car. That one I played, and I played a few other ones at Rumble Seat. And the first real experience I had with a group of them would have been in 2008 in Springfield, Missouri. My friend Tom Whitrock, legendary guitar dealer, burst collector. And I just stumbled in his shop, and he's like, hey, you're Joe, right? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, hey, do you want to see some bursts? And I'm like, you don't hear that in a music store every day. Like, we burst plural. So all of a sudden these chainsaw cases start coming out. And I'm like, you always associate the chainsaw case with a sandwich body 72 Deluxe.
Yeah.
The 58 comes out, then Donna comes out, then Sandy comes out. He had just gotten back from Arlington. And that's when I started to go, this is, now I get it, because I had a store to myself and an audience with these things, and started to feel the differences in the necks, because the prevailing narrative was the 58 was a club neck, and then the 59 was this, and then the 60 was the small. They kind of vary,
Yeah.
and different serial number ranges vary within the year. And I gravitated towards, honestly, the 60. I like the skinnier neck. And I like certain 59s that are not too big. And I like the bigger fret ones, because the 58s came with the small
Tiny
frets.
frets.
When I got my first one in 2010, then it exploded. Every show, there was a couple showing up, and I became known as a guy associated with the Sunburst Les Paul. And I think we've documented, between myself and Mike Hickey, we've documented over 200. And when you've handled as many as I've handled, you start noticing similarities, and you start being able to identify guitars that are not all original and just outright fakes. And it doesn't take long, and you can almost do it with your eyes closed, because they had a standard, no pun intended, to making those guitars. And they applied those same standards to juniors and specials and 335. So if you get this wacky feeling neck heel, and that doesn't feel like a Gibson. It doesn't feel like a Sunburst Les Paul. It doesn't feel like a Gibson. And that's the one thing I encourage any collector getting into this, is to understand the manufacturing processes of the time. Ask, beg, borrow, steal, to play as many examples of vintage Gibsons as you can, of any era, 40s, 50s, 30s, 20s, 60s, 70s. You start understanding the way it would have gone down in just a pragmatic way. Okay, now you can start identifying the factors. This one here is a guitar that I've known about for a long time, and I like things with people's name on it.
Yeah.
I just do. I think it's primitive social media before social media became this ugly thing where people turn on each other. It's just like, hey, look at me. I'm promoting my business. I'm promoting my brand. I'm promoting my music. It's like, who's up there playing on stage tonight? I don't know. I think his name is John.
So close, though. It's so close.
It's Johnny B, right? And it's, probably, Bolsonaro or some Italian name, that like would
go all the way
go all the way to
down
the fifth fret. But this guitar is a 1960, late 1960. It is 08145.
Total blade neck on this one.
Not
version
as
3?
bad as the Australian guitar that I have, but it's a typical 1960s. I like tomato soup guitars.
Yeah.
I like the Sunburst, because when you want to buy a Sunburst Les Paul, you want them Sunburst.
Is this glued on?
It was glued on. And it was glued on, and you don't want to look underneath.
Just leave it glued on, yeah.
But, it's Johnny B. It will always be Johnny B. And it's all original frets, original everything. It stays in tune wonderfully. Been playing it on the road for the last couple of years. And it just is a fantastic instrument, and I just love this guitar when Elliot had it 10, 12 years ago, and he had those classic photos and the Western stuff. And when it came back up for sale, let me see what I can do, and traded some stuff in like we all do. And I got Johnny B. And there it is. It came from Portland. It originally came out of Portland in the 80s, in 1983, and it was sold for $1,500. And then it's changed hands and stuff like that over the years. And it's not $1,500 now.
It's too cool. This has seen some serious road. This one's been out?
This one's been out. All the ones that we're going to see today these are road dogs. These are not Martha Reed or Al Bosco guitars, you know, and this is a great guitar, and it sounds fantastic. It just sounds like a jet engine. And I like 60s because they have a little shorter neck tenon. They tend to be biters, not moaners, and meaning that they're brighter and they're punchier, so they cut through. It's like, you know, so I just like 60s, and, you know, they're cool. And this is one of the coolest because of the name.
Totally.
Yeah, and it's like, I actually thought about taking this off and putting Joey B.
It's so close. It's just a couple letters away.
I can just tape over it, you know, like, but you gotta leave it alone. It's wonderful. Cali Girl case.
That's a Cali.
Mostly associated with gold tops, but you do see some. Magellan's got a Cali Girl, but you know, when you're at a store, think about it at the store in Lake Fitch, you're like, you just get a case. And a lot of times Gibson was happy to sell you.
How many times I gave you a case with whatever, you know, whatever case came out of the back. They don't always stay together.
Yeah, I think you gave me an SKB case with Amos at it. You know?
Yeah, that was it.
Anyway, here we go. What is this?
Oh,
This is the Raging Cajun.
it's a lot of red.
It's a lot of red. It's a nice color. It's a nice top too, nice chevrons. Double whites again. 1960, 07171. And this one's got a great story involving Michael Hickey. This guitar ended up in New Orleans. It was sold, I believe, by our friend Vic, or through a guy who Vic sold it to back in like 1990. Ended up in New Orleans and sold it to Steve at International Vintage. It had crappy chrome covers on the pickups. Other than that, the guitar's stock. It's got one change volume pot. Who cares? Real guitar. And it ended up at International Vintage in New Orleans. Nobody went down there to see it, and you know, I don't think Steve really, you know, wasn't really in a hurry to sell it. Great guy, I love Steve. We were playing the Sanger Theater in New Orleans on a Saturday afternoon, and I got bored. And I asked Mike, I said, Mike, you want to come down to the guitar shop? You want to see Steve? Sure. Comes down. We go down there. I go, hey, what's up with the burst? And I said, what's the number on it? The number was less than I thought. I said, okay. Then Steve comes in from a gig, and I go, like, I don't really need to ask this question, but I'm curious. And I think I have a number in my mind. I said, if he says the magic number, it's going to be the trouble, and I have to sell something to pay for it. If he says the magic number, shake his hand, take the guitar. I was like, we'll square up on Monday. You know, I'm not going anywhere. My credit's good, thank God. After I make the deal with Steve on the guitar, Mike finds a copy of Vic Dupre's first book from the early 90s. I was like, early 90s. Mike goes, what do you want for these books? And Steve, I don't know what he was thinking, but he just looks at the price on the book, the original price, right? Like the original Hal Leonard price. Yeah. And he charges Mike full price of the book as if it was a new book only 30 years later. And, you know, Mike goes, okay, fine, you know, and he just does it, and he's fuming, and he goes out, he's like looking through the books, and he goes like, can you believe it? You just buy a Sunburst Les Paul, you know, the way Mike talks, and he's like, you know, can you believe that? You know, he charged me full price. We're on the bus going back to the theater. Next thing he goes, hey buddy, here's your guitar. And it's a picture. Okay.
Oh.
Of your guitar, 07171, with double whites. We're like, wait a minute.
Oh, the crappy chrome covers were still on it?
Yeah. We're like, wait a minute. So we look. Next thing you know, 20 minutes later, the covers come off, and there's your guitar. Posted on Instagram, because that's how everybody gets their information now. And Steve is coming to the show, so he comes there early. He goes like, man, you really lucked out with those double whites. And we're like, dude, the guitar, it was in a book in your store. Look them up every once in a while. So it turned out to be cool. And this is the most consecutively used guitar I've ever played on stage. Every show, 3 years, 300 shows. I use it every night. And it's just a great, great burst. have here, this guitar, well, it's a Les Paul. It's a 59 Les Paul.
Those weird colored pickups on it.
With those bobbins, that zebra and a double white. This used to belong to Craig Chaquico in Jefferson Starship. And this was the guitar he would have had when he was making records, like Jane and all those hits they had in the late 70s. There was an incident in Germany in 1978 in which there was some unpleasantness at a concert at the Lorelei Amphitheater, which I've played in Lorelei, Germany, which is out in the country. The guitar got taken, just disappeared into the German ether, passed around among collectors and people. They didn't, somebody must have knew what it was. It then resurfaced about, 20 years later, and a friend of mine, Harry, bought it, and then there was some disputes about provenance. Finally, they worked it out, and I have a damn file cabinet full of legalese that says it's got a clean title. It does have a clean title. Everybody's happy. It doesn't detract from the fact that it's a beautiful 59 Les Paul that has a very cool rock and roll provenance, and I've had this guitar for a little bit. It's serial number 92180, and you notice, some of these things turn brown on the back. This is pretty bleached out. This is
no red.
This is not a Sunburst Les Paul. It looks gold, and on stage it looks gold, but it's originally a Sunburst. And if you unscrew this and pull the poker chip off, it'd be
tan
cherry,
lines all under it.
Cherry red, and there's a beard underneath. But it's a great guitar, and it sounds really cool. This is a bright one, and I like it for certain things, and I like it for a song called Slow Gin. I was playing Slow Gin on it for about a year.
Can you talk to me a little bit about double whites and zebras? When do you start to see those? Because, is there specific serial number ranges that if you looked at it, you can go, hey, I bet there's probably double whites underneath those covers? Or is it really sporadic?
No, there's certain serial number ranges. 0900s. Al Bosco's guitar's got double whites. Now I call it the Al Bosco because that's where I bought it from, Al Bosco.
The Bosco Burst.
The Bosco Burst. And my friend Ronnie's got a Burst 5 numbers away, has double whites. A lot of times you see them in this range. A lot of time, 2100s you'll see them. You'll see a lot of 0060s, two,
the first two digits.
Yeah, 2 digits are like 00231 or whatever, make it up as you go along. And what it was just basically, it was Gibson had gotten sent these bobbins when they were making pickups, and they never anticipated anybody would pop the covers. They were soldered in. They probably would have welded them if they knew we were going to argue about it this much. I'm a covers guy. That's why most of my Bursts have covers, but there's a few exceptions where I think they look better. This being one of them. I just like the look of it. Plus, it's the classic look of the guitar. Craig played it back in the day, and that was, that's the way it looked when he had it, and it's cool. And so you kind of want to just preserve that provenance and everything. So.
Finally, something other than a brown case.
Right,
Getting sick of all those Sunburst Les Pauls.
To the naked eye, this appears to be a standard mid-60s SG case.
Yeah.
And the reason why I brought it up, because you posted something a while back of Elvis playing a double neck. And I don't have one of those, because it's rarest of the rare. But I can, with a little duct tape, make one right before your eyes. Let's start with the top.
Oh, yeah. Yikes.
This is the top. This is Gibson's equivalent to the Fender Bass 6. So it's basically an octave below. An octave below. So, and it's got two.
Tell me those are
two PAFs. Standard spacing.
Sick.
And this would have been a standard SG body as well. They probably didn't sell many of these because it's just a beast of a guitar or bass. And I saw it and I was like, man, this is so rare and so cool. And the fact that it just tells me Gibson was a manufacturer, and they were reacting to what Fender was doing, and Fender was reacting to what Gibson was doing, and it was this back and forth, and it hasn't changed, you know, for years. And you know, it's like to find one of these, you know,
It's so
pretty
rare.
cool.
I've never. I mean, I've seen the
Right.
EB6. That's like the SG, like the ES body style EB6.
Yeah, and then there's the one that's a 6-string bass with the single PAF. It looks with a 335 body. But I've never seen. Yeah, this is the one of the few I've seen like this, and it's pretty cool. And it's as an instrument, it kills the Fender Bass 6 in my opinion, because you can play chords and the back pickup is back enough to where it crunches, and you can get your death metal on with this thing.
Baby.
Tuned down to E. This is pretty cool.
Very cool.
Remember a while back in this day of filming, I said I don't do eBay, and none of this stuff is eBay. Guess where this came from? I'm a contradiction in terms. This is the one and only eBay guitar I've ever owned. And it was being sold in Houston,
Oh, baby.
and it's not particularly old, but it's very specific.
Freddie King, anyone?
That's right. This would have been the same type of guitar era that he played in those classic Cotton Bowl,
With the collar.
the big
The
collar.
big collar.
And I'm such a fan. And the original pickguard, because the original one had disintegrated, and would have said Gibson on it.
Yeah.
The little, it was like a silk screen. And you can see some of this greening is when the pickguard gases, and it roaches out the gold. But in '72 was the only year that you guys embossed the covers.
Pickup covers.
And that's what Freddie played. And Freddie had a '68, and he also had that early one that you guys reissued, the one I think it's a 345. These are the 355. And I bought it from a guy who was very secretive, and this would turn me off to eBay for a lifetime. I sent him a check, and he's like, well, okay, just don't disclose my name, because I play, I'm kind of well known, and I play in a famous band. I'm like, wow, you know, I'm buying a guitar from, you know, whoever, you know, I'm somebody super famous, you know. And I get the guy's name, I'm like, who the hell is this guy, right? Turns out he played for a couple of weeks. He played like some guitar for a famous guy who's in a famous band. But there's all the hoopla about it and all the secrecy about it. And I thought I was buying a guitar from David Gilmour, but it's not. But it's very rare to see a 72 355.
Do you have anything else that has the emboss covered? Have you tried to put the set together? Or
I got
anything?
the set.
You got the whole set.
I got the set. I got the 345 and I got the 335.
335.
And I don't believe that the 335 is stamped. Yeah. So it's the whole set. I kind of dig them. I think you guys should reissue these. You know?
They are pretty cool.
They are pretty cool. And it was just another part of the branding and kind of updating the models for the infamous NAMM show.
How important is the story to you when buying something? I mean, obviously mint stuff is cool, but played-in stuff is cool too. Is stuff with a good story?
It's the best. I buy the story. The instrument comes free. I can tell you, there's been some great capers. Literally, I'm on tour. I'm climbing up, shelving units, looking for stuff, pulling stuff out, stuff showing up at the, like literally in the backstage. You buy the story, you buy the history, and most importantly, you preserve the history in the story. Guitars and amps stay together in my collection. They don't get separated. It's like if you buy a Strat, it comes with the amp, keep it. That's a set. I hate to see them separated because sometimes you can get more money a la carte versus the set, but then you've also broken up somebody's history and music, And I take that really seriously. And I take the trust that the families put in me to keep these things going and play them and enjoy them and photograph them. And what's my name? Walter.
Put on the case, man.
See, I argue this is primitive social media. It's like, how do you promote yourself, your band, your brand name, yourself as a player? Handed out business cards. There's those legendary John McLaughlin business cards. You would hand it out, electric guitarist. That's how you got your name out, and you went to the hardware store, got these lovely, I love these fonts, these old fonts. They don't do it anymore. It was probably all hand-drawn before they mass-produced them. This one here is a 1953 Gibson J200 that was sent back to the Gibson factory. And this goes with a pair of guitars. He had two of them. He had a blonde one and he had a sunburst. And Peter Buck from REM has the second.
Very cool.
And it's one of those weird anomaly guitars where he wanted his name in the fingerboard. He probably wanted the bridge updated. They did some warranty work. They redid the headstock.
The logo.
The logo's
Yeah.
so
That's
primitive, you know?
Really cool.
But it was all done in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And, you know, it's just one of those type of guitars that you just go, there's only one of these, you know?
And they added a pickup,
Added a pickup.
like
you know?
a J160E or something would have.
And a jack. All pro work. This wasn't pro-am. The collectors and people in the world would say, well, it's not worth as much because it's not an all original stock model of a 53 J200 in Sunburst. And then you go, would you rather have a one-of-a-kind factory piece of folk art that, you know, belonged to somebody named Walter versus just a regular one that just, you know, and it's a difference between preserving history and baseball cards. If you're collecting baseball cards, you want the Lou Gehrig, Jim Mint 10. It's that kind of thing, you know. This is the anomaly in all of that. You know?
I know you talked down on acoustic guitars and stuff a little bit. Not talked down, but you're not as big of a fan of acoustic guitars. But you still, if you see something that's cool like this, it's around, you'll take it.
Absolutely, you know, and I like acoustic guitars as tools. I never got into them to the extent some other people get into them because of the fact I'm not an acoustic player. These are harder to play, you know.
Yeah.
Les Paul and some gain, man, this is great. This thing, you got to work,
Yeah.
you know. But it's a beautiful example, and it's a beautiful one-off called Walter.
Brown case, different shape.
Different shape. Are you sick of the lift-ins yet?
Not yet.
Not
but
yet.
yeah.
We will be by the end of the day. These are great guitars, and I've really, really been using these for almost my entire professional life. Gibson 335. This one here being from 1961, and this is a pretty preserved model.
That's red.
So this is what they would call a cherry dot neck 335. Short guard, reflector knobs in cherry. And it's pretty preserved. And I got this from my friend John at True Vintage. And we were kind of scared to ship it, so he drove it up here to Nashville. These are good sounding guitars because of the nature of having the
Block, yeah.
block inside and then the F-holes. And they're known as, you know, the burst killers in the sense that they sound amazing, and probably more of your favorite records are made on one of these than on a Les Paul.
And the 335's on the road. Always something in the rack, right?
Always something, always a 335. I love playing the blues on a 335. It just gives me that B.B. King mode, you know? And it also blooms like this. It sounds authentic to me, you know? It just blooms and it has that feedback. And there are some nights, depending on the stage, because I don't use effects, sometimes they'll feed back and you'll be like, oh, what a drag. And then some nights it's perfect.
Just the
and you
whole-
want to just
yeah.
bottle that, you know, and you can hold a note for, you can do the Nigel Tufnell thing all day. So this is a nice example.
That's killer.
Black case,
Clean black.
clean black case. Now I have a pair on the road, two red ones. I have a red dot marker and I have one of these, a red block marker. And every time I've been lucky enough to play the Royal Albert Hall, except for the first time, I've had one of these with me. And we always sound check Crossroads.
Yeah.
And there's something about the Albert Hall and that reverb and this guitar and my just absolute love of Eric Clapton and his music and the legacy and everything that just makes me feel like the luckiest SOB on the planet. This is a 1963. I believe Eric's was a 1964. Little slightly different neck shape. 64 is a little bit bigger. I've actually played Eric's guitar, and his neck is not huge, so it's not that typical 64 kind of handful of neck. It's more closer to this. And this is a very cool example. Came out of Atlanta. and it has probably the gnarliest bridge pickup I've ever heard.
Just a screamer.
It just has that extra 5%. And they're patent numbers. So
Who cares?
proving that you don't, some people have bionic vision and they can see through the nickel, through the coils, through the copper wire and all the magnets and the base plate, and they can see this little black sticker underneath. It's not the same, it doesn't sound the same. Until you plug it in, they kind of sound pretty close. So there you go. Dot in a block.
Now, you did admire this stuff as a kid. When did you start, would you say, collecting? When did you become a collector?
I got my first communion money. This is about, I think
First big payday?
Yeah, it was like $200. And I bought a Crybaby wah-wah pedal. And the first real old guitar that I got was a 1971 Candy Apple Strat from Big Apple Music in New Hartford, New York. My father found it on his way home from work. I think it was $175 or $275. And I mean, to my parents of working class, middle class, I mean, that was all the money in the world. But my dad had he squirreled away some money. He bought it for me because he knew I wanted this thing. And it was a big headstock and it said Fender with that old logo. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. I still have the husk of that guitar today. And it's the one that BB signed when I first met him. And so, but looking through like the Duchess Schwab book or the Tom Wheeler book or, you know, and even in Guitar World magazine, you know, Collector's Choice, every month they'd have the full
pull-out poster.
And in April of '88, when George Lynch was on the cover, I remember pulling the poster out and there was a picture of this kind of beat up, cool looking black Stratocaster that had the initials HAR, standing for Howard Reed, Howard A. Reed. And I tacked it on my wall as a kid. I just dreamt of it. And then I put a picture of a Sunburst Les Paul and I just dreamt of it. And a blonde 335 leaning up against a brown Vibroverb. I remember I had that and I cut it out of a calendar. I had all these pictures on my wall and I would just go in one day. And in 2014, as I was about to make my debut at the Ryman Auditorium, I picked up the 1955 black Howard Reed Strat from Gruhn's Guitars. I bought it. And it was a surreal moment in my life going from poster to reality. And poster was, oh my God, look at the patina on the neck and how cool it is and how great it must play and sound. It's going to be the best guitar ever. Reality, when I picked it up off the case, nobody told me it was 9.5 pounds. I'm like, wow, that's a heavy Strat. But it's the one. I'm just a guitar kid that did well for himself. And I don't apologize for that because I worked hard. This is an ES300. And it's probably like a 1949 or 1950. And it's a factory neck inlay, Tex Robbins, which it said Marty, but I'll take Tex. And it was just a local, Nashville musician who commissioned this guitar from Gibson before there was a custom shop. Like Gibson would build you anything.
Just make you a custom.
If you're willing to wait and pay for it. Kind of like now. This Labella Strings poster is something that, it's the large version of this. The more sought after one is the smaller version, but in terms of this wall, I like the larger version. Probably early 70s, 72, original, and well framed, and that's why I gravitate to all this stuff. It's just, to me, it's very organic. It's not like digitally designed. It's somebody drew that or put that together, and there was more of a process to get there. Up there is a 1966 ES330 Cherry Red, and his name is Bob. Now, Bob probably should have put his last name because he could just be any Bob.
Could be any Bob.
But, we all know a Bob, and we love Bob.
Makes it much more sellable after the fact.
Yeah.
Really opens the market up.
Don't call me
all
Robert.
Bobs.
Don't call me Robert. Call me Bob. This is a 1959 Gibson Birdland. Harlan Odom. Again, hand painted on the pickguard. Again, just one of those things where you just go, how cool is that? Again, that was custom ordered, and it was a custom spec guitar. And
Is that factory nickel too, instead of gold?
it is. Nice.
That's cool too.
It's cool too. And, you know, it's just one of those things. It came from the original owner, and I'll give you one guess what his name was. It's cool. It's a very cool guitar, and again, it's folk art, and it's just super fun to find them like that. The case says it all.
That's a good name to see on there.
I don't collect celebrity instruments. Terry Reid's been a friend for a long time. I met him in 2014 when he was selling his guitar. And you know, being a veteran of the Los Angeles vintage guitar scene, what happens? Nobody wants to pay Terry,
Yep.
and they want to sell it to me, then pay Terry, and then not have to pull any money out of their own bank account. This was happening. I was getting conflicting price. Hey, do you want Terry Reid's telly? Finally, I know this woman, one of my good friends, and a woman that's been a fan of mine for a long time, Libby, and I knew she knew Terry. I called her. I said, hey, you have Terry Reid's number? She said, yep. I cold called him on a Saturday afternoon. I get him a phone. Hello, this is Joe Bonamassa. He says, Joe Bonamassa? I said, I hear you have the tellies for sale. He's like, yes, but nobody wants to fucking pay me. You know, and I'm not doing his accent very well, but that's pretty much the sentiment. I said, dude, you know, my name good enough to take a check tomorrow? So I drove out to Palm Springs. We had a wonderful afternoon, showed me great pictures. I'm such a fan of his music. You know,
And he's been with everybody. He's been
with
around
everybody,
it all. Yeah.
hanging around with the Beatles, hanging around with Hendrix, hanging around with Steve Marriott of Stones, and he's wonderful. If you don't know Terry Reid, check out his music. He's just the loveliest person. And I always say this is not my guitar, even though I bought it from him that day. It's always his guitar. And you're not seeing double.
Another one with a humbucker in the
Another
neck.
telly with a humbucker. This one's a little more haggard than the Nocaster. And if you watch Terry's video in 1971 at Glastonbury, he has this, okay? And it's just as haggard, almost just as haggard as it was back then. He bought it in 1968 when he was the opening act in the United States for the Farewell Cream Tour in Chicago. And by the time he reached Madison Square Garden, he said the front pickup had died, and Dan Armstrong had put this humbucker in it. End of story. Terry Reid's telly. After the last tour, because it's starting to, you know, it's just starting to get a little bit, worn in. I'm gonna retire it. It's probably done its last show with me. Maybe I'll do a couple more, and I'll keep it played in the studio, keep it at home. But as far as traveling, it's just too sentimental to me at this point. You know, for me to, you know, ship it over to Europe in a crate and go, man, you know, if I lose it, it's like, yeah, it's like I'm in charge of Terry's guitar here. So, but yeah, it's a beautiful guitar.
Now the guitars are one thing. When did the kind of point of purchase music store memorabilia collecting start?
I started buying point of purchase stuff, and it started very, very rudimentary. It was, I would find one sign, and it started at a place called Timeless Music in Cleveland. And I bought a guy named Clyde, who had purchased a bunch of really cool stuff. It used to be my secret little place. Where'd you find that? I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember. Of course I do. I purchased a foam green Jazzmaster and a bunch of custom color stuff, still have. And then the next trip I purchased a white glove mint ES355 1960, cherry red, perfectly preserved gold pickguard. It's scary clean. And I asked him, I said, you don't have any of that old memorabilia stuff laying around? He goes, I got one thing. So he goes to the basement, he pulls it out, and it's a Vox pinwheel sign that says, it's kind of 60s and esoteric. I think they made them in 1966-ish. Got it back to California, hooked it up, hung it on the wall, and I go, that's pretty fun. I found an RCA sign in North Carolina on a guitar safari, and it was like $100. Hung it on the wall, and I go, that looks good with that. Wish I had more stuff that lit up. Ding. Once in my strange little orbit, once it goes ting, I have a problem.
Yeah, it's too late.
That's all I can see. You're going to underpay for some stuff. You're going to overpay for a lot of stuff if you truly want it. You got to offer something fair, because I have a conscience, and I don't want to rip people off, and I don't want to be known as, oh, it's like, oh, stole it, found a burst from this little old lady for $150, because you're dealing with people and you want to treat people fairly. This is one of my favorite places in this house, is because some of these things came from pretty cool places. This I got from my friend Craig in Boston, who bought it 40 years ago. And it's an American folk blues festival, 1968. But look at some of the bands: Jimmy Reed, John Lee Hooker, T-Bone Walker, Big Joe Williams, this Loduca accordions. Hey, listen, accordion, they need love too, And this is pretty rare, because there's a lot of guitar-based posters and signs and backlit signs. How many accordion dealers do you know?
These days, very few.
This bass is an Epiphone, part of the Gibson Brands family. 1958.
Keep the bikini plaque down there, man.
Bikini plaque. That's
bikini plaque on an upright bass is cool with me.
It's been on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. There's a picture of it. This is a pass for the last Journey tour, which I got to sit in with Neil and my friends in Journey last year at Caesar's Palace, which was really cool. This I almost broke my foot on getting it out of the bus. It was worth it. It lights up.
Where would something like this have lived back in the day? Would this like a drugstore thing, or is this like a
drugstore, music store, any place that, even a department store, like those early downtown department stores? This is for televisions. You have a tube chart, you have how many pins, and it works, And then if you needed tubes, they would unlock the door, sell you the tubes, and you move on. This thing's a cool poster here. Fender introducing the Showman amp, but this is all the center volume stuff. Vibrasonic Bandmaster, 310 Bandmaster, Brown, hard to find. Center volume Concert, Pro, Twin, and a Super. That was their redesigned line in '60. They were also making Tweed amps at the same time. So there was a crossfade. They're making Tweed Harvards, Champs. They made Tweed Champs up to '63. They would make them until they ran out of parts. And, solid state rectifiers, super clean. Leo wanted fidelity, and he got it.
You've certainly never seen a white Super, though, right?
Yeah, right. Two.
Definitely not two of them.
Yeah, not two of them after you were told it was the only existing one.
Hey, look, there's another one.
Yeah. This Black Diamond string display has some of the rarest Black Diamond strings. It's the blonde versions. Most of them are black. And that's probably from the 40s. And that would have sat on the countertop of a music store or a drugstore. And, imagine seeing that on the countertop of Walgreens. How cool is that?
Sick. It's a different shape, and
it's an odd fellow. And
I'm not even sure what.
Perhaps a cheeky fellow. When I decided to do a record at Abbey Road, I had this notion. I was like, I really want to keep it really British and maybe write a song, on a British guitar. So I decided to reach out to my friend Rick at New Kings Road Guitars, and I purchased this guitar from him, which is a bit of an oddball.
There's something you don't see every day.
It's a Zemaitis.
A flame top.
A flame top Zemaitis. Yeah, and normally these things have a engraved, like a metal top and
or pearl or something,
and it's a different logo, but it just says Z, and it does a very cool thing, and it's on the title track of my new album, and I loved it, and I just, as soon as I played it, I bonded with it, and it's just an odd SG, almost looks like a Yamaha.
Like a, SG.
Like S200,
S200,
2000 or S2000. Yeah. So it was made for a guy named Richard Serrard. These are handwritten letters from Tony himself about the build and
on Zemaitis letterhead.
On Zemaitis letterhead, and they stamped it, and it was built in my birth year, 1977. So it's kind of an oddball, but it's a great one, and it's a great instrument. It's a great guitar. It's super cool.
Did any songs come out of this, or just
I wrote a song called Royalty, which may or may not be the title of my new solo album coming out in October.
Really?
Yeah.
So it inspired the song and potentially the name of the album.
I wrote the song in 20 minutes on the guitar in my hotel. I brought it to James House and Kevin Shirley, and I recorded the song on it, wrote the song on this guitar. And certain things just have songs in them. You know, certain guitars, certain amps, just they inspired you to a place, and this did. And I just really love these thumb wheels to adjust the action. Like, you know, it's very medieval of him. So, cool piece.
Killer. I've
Cool
never
piece.
seen a flame top one. That is
Either
so cool.
have I. And it's nice and book match. Center seam.
It's all about the center seam, kids.
Very cool case.
Yeah.
This is a Guild case. Very cool case. Somebody decided to do some folk art on it and loved Charlie Patton. I love Charlie Patton. This came from my father's guitar shop in the 90s, and we kept it, you know, God, since you know, 25 years. And I just loved it. It was like Patton and picture of Charlie Patton. And, you know, it's like you know, it's just, there's a picture of Robert Johnson on there. It was just killer.
All kinds of, yeah.
Blind Reverend Jefferson, everything. So inside this case is a very rare guitar that has nothing to do with any of the individuals on the case. What is this?
When in Nashville.
Went in the 615. This is a Grammer guitar made in Nashville, Tennessee, about 1969. And it's a Johnny Cash signature model.
model.
And I'm lucky enough to own 2 of these. This one here is the one I played the song Driving Towards the Daylight on. And it's a great studio instrument because it's very even sounding. It's a very rare guitar. Not many people have ever seen a Johnny Cash model.
Now, is this the green burst, or is this the
Yes.
regular that's just kind of darkened up?
Yes.
But that's kind of the most collectible color on these, is that
yeah,
the green burst.
And they're not very collectible guitars. I mean, generally, if you're to buy a Grammer guitar, you're looking at a $2,000, $2,500 guitar. But they're so undervalued, and they're made in America, and you know, it's got a maple back. But to see these signature ones pop up is very rare, and it just says Johnny Cash. It's cool.
So cool.
And the case is even cooler.
The case is even cool. From what I understand, Grammer had like a J45 that he loved, and he had a D18 that he loved, and he kind of blew them both up and kind of took what he liked the best out of both of those and kind of made like a Gibson Martin kind of thing.
And this is when the Johnny Cash show was happening right down the road, you know, at the Ryman Auditorium. And most people associate him with that black Fender Malibu. I'm lucky enough to have 2 of them. I have one that's in perfect condition and a much more greenish, almost like Sonic Blue and green sunburst. And then this one was a little bit darker.
Rad.
And it's been played. And this was also played at Vienna and Carnegie Hall and everything else. So
Cool guitar.
I love this guitar.
Very cool.
This guitar I bought in New Orleans, Louisiana. Bought a lot of nice guitars.
Seems like a lot of them come out of
always something. Always,
Bayou.
I've got good luck in New Orleans. This one I bought last year, and we were out looking for a guitar case for Jade McRae, who sings in my band, and she has a Fender Duo Sonic, and she wanted a gig bag, like a guitar case for it, and we stumbled upon a guitar shop called Inlow Guitars in New Orleans. And then this is what I found.
Yikes.
Yikes is right. 1952.
Wow. That's not a lot of wear. You
And
could do that in a weekend.
You could do that, yeah, in rehearsal. And the best part of it, it's all, got the original strap, it's got the original polish cloth, but it's all receded up.
Oh, man.
Elise Norberg.
Ian.
And Ian. And some people say, well, too bad the letters are added. Like, to me, it's the coolest part of the guitar. And that's the way you want to find a Blackguard, ladies and gentlemen. That is as nice as they come.
And good luck, because not many of them
Not many survive.
look like this.
And it came with a, Fender guitar and amp
with the
catalog.
manual?
And, and Fender was great with the advertising, but also they sold K guitars. There's a K guitar. And there's also these acoustic guitars, what appears to be Tele headstocks.
Where are those?
Where are those? I don't know if that's just them modifying the picture, but that looks like a Telecaster.
It really does.
You're just going, this is the primitive early stages of Fender, and it's a blend, not a tone, so it blends both pickups, not a tone. Dead tone, front pickup, lead pickup, blend. And you got everything. It's one of the nicest.
The case is as clean as the guitar.
It's one of the nicest.
Usually, it's wow.
And it still has Elise's strings on it, by the way.
You never restrung it.
Never restrung it. And some people would say they're the original strings. I don't think so. But they're definitely been on there a long time. They're heavy. And
They are very heavy.
It would be something that Fender would have put on there. So they're definitely from the 50s. Because you could not have played that thing very long.
It doesn't have the
Doesn't have
the
anything.
spot
Doesn't
on
have
the
a spot.
guard or anything.
And even the mid ones you see like have a spot and they play rhythm and cowboy chords. But this is like just rudimentary playing.
Yeah, you can see exactly the 3 or 4 chords that got played on
And
it.
you can wear through those things in a couple of days.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That tells you how much that guitar has been played.
Unbelievable.
Now we're in the Fender side of things again. This guitar was the companion guitar or the sister guitar to a very rare EMS 1235 electro mandolin Spanish blonde double neck that I bought from 1959.
I believe you have a coaster of that guitar
Yes.
on the table, on the
Yes,
coffee table.
I do, and the guitar's in Los Angeles. This was the companion guitar of that because playing the double neck all night, that's a big job. This was the Fender one. Now we were just talking about how tellies wear out and how these early Fender maple necks wear out. I've had this guitar for 5 years. I've played nothing but 3 or 4 different songs on it, all of which had slide involved. So I'm not really fretting anything up here.
That's all from you?
A lot of that wear came from me, and I don't know why. It's just simply playing it. And it's a hardtail. And I love a hardtail. And it's a 55, and they have beautiful grain in the body. But you know, you can almost just look at these necks and they'll wear out.
Have to wear.
Because that's why they bolted them on. They could the idea was, okay, well now
Put
you wore it out, and put another one on. Bakelite everything,
No cracks.
no cracks. You know, you get these little grooves in the Bakelite. That's just from the string vibrating. You know, when you hit it, and they just do that. And no cracks, pretty good shape. Not going to win the blue ribbon for mint, but it's pretty nice. It's a pretty nice example.
How much more sound do you get out of a hardtail than a tremolo? Because not a lot of people think they want a Strat, they want a whammy bar on it.
Right.
And like
They'll pay
hardtail
more.
Strats get frowned on, but like
All the great Strats that I've played, that you go, wow, that's a great Strat. And before you even look down, you know, 9 out of 10 have been without a
Hardtails.
tremolo. I love them because they stay in tune, you know. And most of the times, if I have a tremolo Strat, I put 5 springs on it,
just make
lock
it
the bar into
unfunctional, yeah.
and make it unfunctional. Mostly because everyone wants to become Van Halen and break it on, you know, break the bar off on
Yeah.
it. Nice tweed case, you know. It's all, you know. But you know, to find a pair like this is pretty cool, and it's very cool. I love this guitar. Are you ready for some basses?
I guess.
That's all right. Let's see here.
I'm assuming it's cool.
Well, I'm not a bass player, but here's an oddball for you. What do you notice?
What is that? It's like no uncontoured P bass
Uncontoured
with tags
with tags
in a custom color.
and a custom color, Olympic white. Made for the European market. Most of these you find in Europe. John Entwistle played one.
I've
And
never seen that before.
I've seen a few like this, and I've seen a few with a maple neck, like a maple cap.
Yeah.
All transitional logo, 1966. And this came from Europe. And I have pictures of the original owner with it. And it's just cool and odd.
It just looks so weird without the belly cut or without any contours. So this, I mean, do we know like how many of these exist?
I would say probably less than 50. And
That's weird.
really weird.
That's cool though.
It's a non-contoured Fender
P-bass.
Precision. And you know, probably Leo wouldn't have signed off on that, but by '66 he was done, and it was somebody else's company.
So much room
Weird,
around
right?
the guard.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then you know, you got the tags, and the serial number matches the tags, and you know, I got pictures of the guy playing it in Europe, and you know, from back in the day. And
Worth buying a bass for, obviously. Something that's that cool is like,
yeah, I mean, something that cool and rare, and This was played on Joanna Connor's record, and they get played. And I like flats on basses
Yeah, me too.
because
Man.
I don't like clicks, and I like clicks. I like booms, not clicks.
Yeah. I've never seen another one of those. That's very,
No,
very
it's very cool. It's very cool. Very rare. Very rare.
Wow.
Now, this is some of the coolest stuff I have here. This Rickenbacker sign, a lot of my sign collecting buddies never see.
Yeah.
It's full size. It's actually a 365.
That's full-size Rickenbacker guitar.
It
neon.
weighs a ton. For as many pieces of point of purchase memorabilia that I've seen, that's one of
Never
the
seen another
few
one.
Rickenbackers. And, it's like I have a light show guitar and it'd be cool, These Fender ones are from the late 70s, early 80s. There's a lot of them around, but they look cool. And, it's nice bookends. The Dr. Hook jacket is
cool.
is a trip.
That's very cool.
I have a small collection of tour jackets.
Satin
Yeah,
jackets.
they're cool. They would give them to the crew, they would give them
Yeah.
to the band. And that was like your badge of honor. I survived Dr. Hook 1978 World Tour. And back then it was really survival. I begged this guy to sell this to me. He has a guitar shop in Birmingham, Alabama. 11 years.
You chased this marquee for 11 years.
It was in his shop, lit up, mocking me behind the counter. I'm like, come on, man. What do you got to get for it? Last year, I went best and final, $2,500. Because I knew it was one of the coolest things. And again, it's a salesman sample. It has a handle on top. So that would have been brought around.
From stores.
Let me show you what we make. You could put anything on there. So happy he sold it to me because I told him it's going to a good home. It's going to be prominently displayed. And I'm going to fix it. He probably got it at an antique store for $5.
No.
The difference in generation and what's in a name. Can't figure out what PUD is short for. Is it Pudley? But he's proud enough to put his name on a damn drum head and advertise his band. Pud Pullen and his band.
Croc case.
Yep.
Clean one, too.
I love The Who. And I'm not a big SG guy, as we talked about. Here's the thing. These do it for me.
Yeah.
I love these.
I love them in white. They look so good
They
in
look
white.
so cool. And most of the times I got that Maestro or whatever. And but to find one, I got a couple of these without tremolos, and they're just great, man. They're great. They're just great power rhythm solo guitars. There's two variants. This being a 63. In Los Angeles, I have a 61.
Slant.
That had a slant. I prefer the ones with the slant just because of the way they feel, because there's just something about it. But this is great. 1963, really clean, white, Polaris white. And they're just a great, powerful rock guitar. It's like so simple. And it's my favorite SGs. The specials. I just love SG specials.
It's the David St. Hubbins Spinal Tap rhythm guitar, man.
Exactly. And it's just fantastic. So, and the color you can't beat. And
That's just totally unfair. That's white. That is still pure white.
I have a red one, red special at home. I also have a TV one in LA.
Cool.
In LA. So they're cool to collect, and they're just fun guitars. So
This is how you P90.
this is one of the few ways I P90.
Cool.
Last but not least, this is a guitar that we based our new Epiphone signature model on. This is a 1958 Gibson Les Paul Custom, all 9.5 pounds of it. And this one here was a candidate because it's not mint. The neck was oversprayed in the back to kind of because it was wore out and people just clear coat them sometimes. And I got into this guitar at the right price to do what I needed to do to this guitar to make it a super playable instrument. Now, a couple of things that you want to do to these. They're severely out of phase. Not even cool out of phase,
Just
severely, like tinny
Unusable
and
out of phase,
unplayable. So you flip the magnet on the PAF to get it all going in the right direction. And it kind of sounds like a super strat, you know what I mean? Like it sounds like, wedged in between. And you have to put frets on them.
Gotta have frets.
The Fretless Wonder worked at the time for the kind of music that Les wanted to play on it. Super fast, no bends. You start bending on a fret, it just doesn't work. So this one's been refretted, the magnet's been flipped. Interesting curiosity about this. Now I don't know if the camera can.
Oh, that's cool.
So these are Epiphone tuners, but if you look at them, instead of the E, they just
Etched a little.
line in it, and it said G. And it must have been when they ran out of something. They ran out of Grovers, they ran out of Clousons, and they put these on there. And I've seen a few examples of
I've seen a
custom.
couple. Is it a 58 or 50?
Yes.
Like they happened in 58.
Yes.
I've seen. I think Norm had an L5 or a 175
Mm-hmm.
or something that had the exact same tuners on it. It was a 58.
And it defies logic,
Yeah.
and it defies what you would read in all the books. But it's stock, throaty, but clean front pickup. Middle's usable, and the lead pickup just barks.
Yeah.
And you'll just, I fell in love with it. It's a great Black Beauty, and you just play this thing into the ground.
And those tuners, so a lot of people would kill the deal because it's like, oh, that's not right, or that's not what's supposed to be. That's the coolest part of the whole guitar right there.
It is, and they actually stay in tune, because I was worried that, like, oh my God, these things may not hold.
Yeah.
They're fine. They're totally fine. And Epiphone did a great job recreating these for the Joe B model. And I just like the fact that they were like, you know what? Just put a line.
just
put
make
a
another line
it's
there.
fine. It's G, E, it's the same thing.
Oh man, it's quite the view. Dude,
Thanks,
we've been
Mark.
here all day, like literally all day.
Really
I want
all
to thank
day.
you for opening the house to us and showing us all this cool stuff, man.
I can't think of a better way to end this day of real guitars and real fun with some fake palm trees and a view of the Nashville skyline. I'm very lucky to live here, and thank you. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Anytime you guys want to drop by and see what else is new, I'm sure something will either break and I have to replace it, but thanks again.
I'm going to take you up on that, man.
Anytime.
But thank you for having us.
No problem.
Hey, until next time, I'm Mark Agnesi for Gibson TV. We'll see you guys on the next episode of The Collection. Peace.